Americans can only understand chronic diseases by understanding the gastrointestinal system, which plays a significant role in health. Almost all inflammatory responses have their foundation within the GI system. As of February 2017, by age, 30% of respondents aged 31 to 45 years had up to 5 treatments with a doctor for their gastrointestinal problems. 41, 61 years of age, 59% saw a doctor for GI complaints. These are high statistics, and we should understand the functional relationship between food and our health. Let's look at how our gastrointestinal system functions. Entero, which means gut, immuno, which means immune system, and pathologies, which means illness or disease, perhaps are the leading cause of many disease conditions. The 17 or T helper 17 immune cells are involved in including but not limited to various immune and immune-like processes, such as reactions to foods, multiple sclerosis, Crohn's, RA or rheumatoid arthritis, and skin diseases such as psoriasis, to mention a few that can be traced to an unhealthy gastrointestinal tract. Since food has such an impact on the microbes inhabiting the intestinal tract, many diseases start here. It is now known that mast cell responses mentioned in our stress video inhabit the lamina propria of the intestine and cause multiple disease syndromes. Many neurological diseases start in the GI tract because the central nervous system, known as the CNS, evolved from the enteric or gut nervous system. Even some plant proteins have evolved to affect the intestinal tract of animals negatively. The specialized cells of the colon, which we will see that are adapted to respond to infection, are also involved in most autoimmune disorders. Emotional disorders such as depression, anxiety, aggressiveness, and irritability can stem from an unbalanced GI tract. Cognition may be impaired with brain fog, poor memory, and concentration, affecting learning difficulties and hyperactivity. Somatic responses such as headaches, insomnia, fatigue, joint stiffness, and weight gain may stem from GI dysfunction. Common gastrointestinal complaints such as dyspepsia, bloating, belching, constipation, and cramping are some of the common complaints. Evaluation from a qualified healthcare provider with proper testing now available should be utilized to find the problem. Let's take a trip through the GI to see how it functions. So make a note. Since the 17 immune cells involved in inflammatory responses reside mainly in the intestine, this is where the disease will begin. These statistics highlight the urgent need for us to understand the functional relationship between our food and health. Understanding our gastrointestinal system is the first step towards comprehending chronic diseases and taking control of our health. The S.A.D or Standard American Diet, along with stress, has a significant impact on the health of the GI tract, along with environmental toxic loads contained in our processed foods. Understanding the complexity of the GI tract starts at the mouth. Digestion starts here. Stage 1. Let's start at the mouth. When food enters, mucin, amylase, and lipase enzymes work to wet the food. Amylase acts on carbohydrates and lipase acts on fats. Mucin also covers the stomach lining to protect against excess acid damage. If all goes well in the mouth, G cells in the stomach produce a hormone called gastrin. Gastrin triggers and starts the gastric juices, other enzymes, and hormones, setting the stage for the proper acid formation and pH. In stage 2, food enters the stomach, and G cells produce the hormones gastrin and histamine, which trigger proper stomach acid. Note that gastrin produces pepsinogen and gastric juices and acts on the parietal cells of the stomach, where the stomach acid is produced and stimulated by the vagus nerve. ECL cells, enterochromaffin, goblet cells, chief cells, and parietal cells. These cells work together with feedback to the vagus nerve, which stimulates other hormone releases and proper pH levels, affecting the environment for amino acids, enzyme production, and hydrolysis. Hydrolysis is any chemical reaction in which a water molecule breaks the chemical bonds of fats. It's important to note the effect on proteins. The low pH in the stomach allows the proteins to uncoil and allows enzymes to work on them. The pepsin enzyme cleaves, breaks up amino acids such as tryptophan, tyrosine, and phenylalanine, forming a peptide, a short chain of amino acids. D cells, delta cells, in the stomach work with other hormones, somatostatin, VIP, gastrin, acetylcholine, and ghrelin, in a cascade of complicated events and feedback loops to prevent excess stomach acid from being produced. Later in the small intestine, the trypsin enzyme cuts the protein into smaller peptides, and other enzymes further disassemble the protein into its component amino acids. So there is a destructive and constructive process occurring to ensure balance within the GI tract. Constant feedback loops are happening every moment to ensure all goes well with the vagus nerve at the brainstem, which is involved in this loop. Stage 3. The small intestine, called the duodenum, is where the bile duct and pancreatic duct meet. The stomach contents that enter the duodenum have been mixed with HCl, hydrochloric acid, and now have a pH of about 2. The pancreas now secretes sodium bicarbonate, which neutralizes the chyme to a pH of 7-9 before it passes into the second region of the intestine, the jejunum. Stage 4. The large intestine has 3 regions: cecum, colon, and rectum. Residual from the chyme in the small intestine empties into the large intestine at the cecum, first part of the large intestine. The appendix hangs off the cecum and is a lymphatic organ, part of the immune system. Fermentation occurs here from fiber and non-absorbed food components, the final breakdown of food components that have not been fully digested. It's important to note that fermentation can occur often in the stomach. Fermentation here only occurs if there is an imbalance before or within the function of the stomach cells. Fermentation at this point can lead to unhealthy microorganism growth, causing possible disease processes. The colon/large intestine extracts water and salts and is highly colonized with bacteria around 10 to the 13th power, 10 times more bacteria than human cells. Some individuals have a mix of 150 species of microbes, a part of a more extensive system called the microbiome. Breakdown components include forming short-chain fatty acids, which are absorbed and used by the cells lining the colon and the brain for fuel. The colon also absorbs fat-soluble vitamins, some produced by the colonic bacteria, which benefit health. Now that we understand the GI tract's essential function, let's look deeper at the foundation or structure, the gut mucosa lining. One of the most essential parts of the immune system is keeping us healthy. The average intake of food is 6 pounds per day. A healthy gut microbiome and immune function can keep us healthy when functioning well. Let's take a look. Over half of immune cells in the body are contained in the gut mucosa of the intestine. They have the task of protecting us from 100 trillion bacteria, yeast, viruses, and parasites. Although they do their job, some diseases occur from the battle that goes on in our GI tract. The mucosal barrier, which separates the lumen of the intestine from the immune cells, is only 1 cell thick. Mucosal barriers separate the external environment from the body's internal environment. These selectively permeable barriers prohibit the passage of bacteria and toxins while permitting water, ions, and solutes, including nutrients, unless they are compromised. Since more than half of the immune cells make their home in the gut, it's no wonder that the primary source of these disease states starts there. Cytokines are the activators of inflammation when the gut is under attack. When triggered, cytokines create a local effect and a whole-body inflammatory response. T helper. 17 cells are known to develop the immune response mentioned and also impede the development of other T helper cell lineage. Humans take in 6 pounds of food on average per day. If food consumption is pesticide-riddled from poor sources or the meat is not grass-fed, then this is a perfect storm for intestinal-related and systemic whole-body inflammation, which can lead to disease. Farm use of antibiotics is now seen as a source for antibiotic-resistant strains of bacteria. The gut mucosa lining. Along with healthy bacteria levels, white blood cells such as eosinophils, granulocytes, basophils, mast cells, and neutrophils handle pathogens in our food. The lining of the intestine or the mucosa has finger-like projections, villi. Plica also helps churn food and move food along. The surfaces of the villi are covered with several types of epithelial cells that line the whole GI tract. At the base of these villi is a crypt, stem cells, which allow for the continual replacement of epithelial cells for the villi. These cells eventually differentiate along different pathways to develop enterocytes and immune M cells, endocrine cells and exocrine cells. Enterocytes help control nutrients. M cells go after antigens, present them to dendritic cells, help mediate immune response, and are concentrated over the Peyer's patches. Goblet cells protect cells from damage. Paneth cells produce A defensins, which are found in the stomach and intestines, and neutrophils, which act against bacteria, fungi, and viruses. B defensins in saliva are in both the esophagus and respiratory mucosa, known as the mucous membrane lining. So there are other cells, such as various forms of enteroendocrine, entero meaning gut, and endocrine relating to any of the body's organs that make hormones. Most important is the enterochromaffin or EC cells, found in the lining of the respiratory lung mucosa. 90% of the body's serotonin is produced in mucosa EC cells. The release of serotonin promotes secretory and peristaltic reflexes, increasing motility. Serotonin also acts on 5-HT3 receptors, stimulating the brain's vagal nerve signals, so we can see how the GI tract influences brain health. So, understanding digestive health affects all aspects of cellular function, from the GI tract to the brain and the endocrine or hormonal system. One dramatic feedback loop keeps us healthy if we feed it properly. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Our products and more content can be found at hydrexsupplements.com.